Can you believe it is week 6 and we are here to talk about the waiver wire? You need some help, you need some pickups. We need to play an intro.
You got a team, here's a word of the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to Football Guys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
That's right, it is the waiver wire show here on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report. It's available at footballguys.com and is written by one Sigmund Bloom and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones. Let's talk about these two at the quarterback position. There are others. Let's talk about Chris Jones not having effort. When we get to tight ends, we will not talk about the Pringles can that is in Travis Kelce's pants, but let's talk about these two quarterbacks to kick things off today, Bloom.
Yeah, and Cease, we could get into some deeper topics. I'm going to record with Theo Grebinger, love that dude, on the couch, and we'll probably get in deeper into this topic. But there's an overarching story in the NFL about redemption quarterbacks. It maybe is a symptom, Cease, of how quarterback development's broken, and also a testament to the fortitude, the spiritual, emotional, psychological fortitude of some of these players. And for a lot of these quarterbacks, it's taking getting to a new team. But for Trevor Lawrence, maybe, just maybe, still the play's a little bit choppy, but this is the kind of win. The fortunes intervene, and in front of this crowd, a signature win against Patrick Mahomes. Maybe this is where things change. He got Travis Hunter involved. We saw flashes of Travis Hunter's talents for the first time, really influencing a game. Brian Thomas making a big catch, beautiful throw. Whatever you say about Trevor Lawrence, that throw was the only throw that was going to get that play done, and he made that throw in that moment. And even the gods saying, you fell down, but the game is still going on. You can still do something, and he did it. So maybe that changes his fortunes. Mac Jones, number one, clearly playing the best football of his career, the alignment with Kyle Shanahan. And remember, Brock Purdy's now on second turf toe problem. If he comes back and has a third, where does that leave us? Also, this offense is going to get back George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk at some point. Of course, the gods are going to make it, so that's never going to actually happen.
Right.
But if Mac Jones is the quarterback, see, if we had some sort of proposition of who's going to start more games for the 49ers for the rest of the season, Brock Purdy or Mac Jones, that's not certain. It's definitely going to be, and Mac Jones has had 2 good fantasy games in 3 games. And again, he's not even playing with close to the full deck of cards in this offense. So at some point you just stop arguing with the results. Like Bob Harris, the sage Bob Harris says, divorce the name from the numbers. And in this case with Mac Jones, in these other quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, divorce what we remember of them from what they're doing now.
Yeah, from what they're doing now. And what they're doing now is helping out your fantasy team, potentially, just like the next group of quarterbacks, including Sam Darnold, Michael Penix, CJ Stroud, Jackson Dart, to Carson Wentz, Bryce Young.
Yep.
Shall I go on?
It's a merry-go-round, and we're going to talk about this at tight end this year, too. It's a really fascinating year. Okay, let me take a moment to do a pep talk as I look into the camera. For those of you that come and join us for the live show or come to YouTube, thank you. I'm sending out my love to you right now. I'm receiving your love. Marathon through a minefield, right? Fantasy football and the NFL. And if you're feeling really beat up right now, like I put all this work into my draft and all these injuries are happening, and I feel like I wasted all that offseason preparation. Guess what? You probably feel the same way as a lot of NFL teams do. As it is in the NFL, so it is in fantasy football. But perseverance is rewarded. And keeping your eye on the ball, baseball, I don't know, it is postseason, and churning these quarterbacks, because these windows, you gave us such a gift with that idea of windows, and there are windows opening for some of these quarterbacks, right? CJ Stroud is going into a bye, but 2 weak defenses, confidence, everything's moving forward there. Sam Darnold, I'm wearing my Ghostbuster shirt for Sam Darnold, wow, just the way he's playing, the way he's getting everybody involved. And Seattle, now all of a sudden we have to consider him as a player. Really, quarterback by committee and playing matchups might work out well. Might work out with Michael Penix, which Michael Penix are going to see coming out of the bye. Well, we know he has the weapons and the running ability to be a good fantasy quarterback. Facing up against Buffalo, he might have to really shoulder a lot of this offense and carry over the confidence he had going into the bye. Jackson Dart, yes, turnovers, but still adding as a runner. And maybe you're not going to play him as he goes Philly, Denver, Philly the next 3 weeks. But again, as part of a quarterback by committee, he's a little notch below. Bryce Young, maybe you can play Bryce Young the next 2 weeks, at least in a 2-quarterback superflex league, going up against Dallas. And he's going to get Jalen Coker back. We'll talk about him. So, yeah, this is exciting. Tua, hey, better numbers without Tyreek Hill, going up against a reeling Chargers defense. He's got some weapons that are coming on. Carson Wentz, there's a larger conversation about Kevin O'Connell and how he proceeds with this Minnesota quarterback decision. But remember, Kevin O'Connell's offense adds value to the quarterbacks. And why not Carson Wentz, as he's going into the bye with everybody? And, I'll just add at the end for your 2 superflex leagues, Dylan Gabriel didn't get overwhelmed. He's a desperation play. And then Kenny Pickett, we're on Kenny Pickett watch, But Cecil, I think that we're seeing it. We're seeing your Windows theory of fantasy football play out in real time, where you just have to look at momentum and you have to say, well, it doesn't matter. It was a poor opponent or it was luck. That creates something that player can at least catch for a few weeks, and your fantasy team can catch it too. And quarterback is probably the easiest position to do it.
Yeah, we'll continue to watch these quarterbacks with great interest. And again, upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report. It's available at footballguys.com. To the running back position, and worthy of his own spot, is Rico Dowdle. My God. Obviously had the biggest game of his year, because he's not going to do that again. But what can he do again in the Carolina backfield?
Yeah, and these are all good topics. These are all things that Thea and I are going to talk about. These are good fantasy football and football topics. Dave Canal said it's a good problem to have, I mean, and again, he called Rico Dowdle a war daddy. But as good as Chuba Hubbard has been, and Chuba Hubbard has been as good as anybody could have possibly expected in the NFL, and as fantasy relevant as anybody could have expected. He's a 4th-round pick. Dowdle, an undrafted player, and I just don't know, Cease, especially if you're a team like Carolina, because Bryce Young is not going to be the dominant tone setter. It's just not in his game to be. Ted McMillan could be, but Rico Dowdle ran in such a way that truly he was not going to be denied. He was just not going to be denied in this game. And I don't know how you go back to just mixing that in. Okay. So, I mean, but either way, from a fantasy standpoint, remember this, and we're going to talk about Kenneth Gainwell, who somehow is not on rosters coming out of the bye. Once we see a player perform the way that Rico Dowdle did in week 5, perform the way that Kenneth Gainwell did in week 4, opportunity's great, volume's great, especially running back. But it's even more important to actually have the goods to turn it into something, right? So somehow people didn't pick up Rico Dowdle. And you look, I know, why didn't it? Oh, everyone, someone picked up Rico Dowdle in every league. Well, maybe not in every single league. And it just gives us a chance to talk about these players. So, Chuba Hubbard, Dowdle hopefully gets one more start this week against his old Dallas team revenge game. But also, he's the healthier back. He's the back with momentum. And he's, again, the window is open for him. The window is not open for right now for Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, windows abound, and well, there's Kenneth Gainwell staring at you right in the window. Hello, I'm right here. Come and get me. Michael Carter with that speed there as well, towards 25% bid for him. Others like Rashard Smith are here. Kamani Vidal, always good to see him worked in to the mix there with the Chargers. So let's go over the rest of these running backs. Bloom.
Yeah, and Cecil, I want to ask you to weigh in on the Chargers when we get there. But, Michael Carter, again, I just think not as high priority, even though he's the lead back, even though he had a good fantasy game. And we don't know how long Trey Benson's going to be out. And Kamar DeMarcado is not a threat to his workload right now. Bam Knight, we'll see. I could put Bam Knight in as a 1%er. But also, this is an Arizona team that, they lost that game in one of the most improbable. There are snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And then there's you have to do an operation to cut open the belly of victory to get the defeat out of there. It was incredible.
If that was in a movie, you wouldn't believe it. You'd
You
be
wouldn't
like,
believe
that's stupid Hollywood. That's not
No,
believable.
that's what is this? The Naked Gun does football or something like that. But anyway, so I love it. It's just like you say, I love it when you hear that. But Michael Carter's still gonna have some value for you. I mean, he's a sell high. Kenneth Gainwell, I should have started with Gainwell because again, Gainwell is a higher priority than Carter if he was left out there. He was dropped in a bye week crunch. Yes, Jalen Warren's back, but again, Gainwell he's healthier. He has the momentum. I've got to keep mentioning Brashard Smith. Because, and I'll talk about this on the couch too. We think about this during draft season in fantasy, but we forget it during the season. Sometimes you just want to get players attached to good offenses. The Chiefs are going to be one of the 5 best fantasy offenses, clearly. They've regained that form, and the Jerick McKinnon role looms, and like everybody can see it when you're watching the Chiefs. I mean, maybe Andy Reid's master plan is keep ramping up Brashard Smith, maintain his confidence, only give him like bite-sized incremental increases so that by the time you get to December in the playoffs, he's ready to do more. But nobody else on the waiver wire running back can become as impactful as Smith without an injury. And Kareem Hunt, not as high priority with Smith, but he did convert 2 touchdowns. And if he's going to be the goal line back, he had a 33-yard run, then he's got at least matchup value. This week against Detroit, Kareem Hunt should at least be in as a flex. But for the rest of the season, I'd rather have Brashard Smith. And then we get to the Chargers. See, I know that Hassan Haskins, he made the team over Vidal. He has some special teams value. He's probably the goal line back. He's the more rugged inside back. But I just think Vidal has more to offer. And it may start out as Haskins over Vidal in terms of snaps, in terms of fantasy opportunity. But again, if there's somebody that's going to make something out of it, there might not be anybody. They also could bring back Gus Edwards or somebody else. But if somebody on this Chargers team right now is going to make fantasy value of this backfield, I think it's Vidal and not Haskins.
Yeah, it's Vidal because he's more explosive with the ball. So, and they also use multiple backs. So regardless of whatever you want, like it'll rarely be just one with Greg Roman there and company. It's rarely just one wide receiver. Although sometimes on the waiver wire, it's felt like that this year of like, can I get any help? And then the help that you got, like Malik Washington, 4 catches, 0 yards. Darius Slayton not doing it. Okay, well, how about this week? Calvin Ridley, Kendrick Bourne, Josh Downs are players out there. Tyquan Thornton, we'll talk about.
Yeah.
There's your Jalen Coker thing. So let's start with the 7 to 15% and up group, which I guess Coker isn't in, but still, we've got a cluster of wide receivers this week, and maybe they'll be able to help.
Yeah, and see, what's fun about these kinds of waiver weeks is it makes you make decisions. It makes you make choices. And I think Ridley has to be the top choice at wide receiver because it was injuries, I guess, when his snaps were going down. And again, it doesn't matter how, even though the Arizona Cardinals did the like blooper reel of all blooper reels they turned an interception into a touchdown. They turned an interception into a touchdown. That can create the magical thinking for Cam Ward, the hookups with Calvin Ridley, and Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley weren't doing that much until this game went into wacko land. But that can carry forward. And Cam Ward, I think, is one of those players that the acumen he's showing is definitely higher than the numbers he's putting up, but that can change. That can certainly change this week against Las Vegas too. I mean, Calvin Ridley could really get some momentum going. Of course, Kendrick Bourne had that big game, and who knows? I mean, hurt players tend to say hurt, so maybe Kendrick Bourne, and he and Mac Jones, remember they played together for 3 years in New England, and Bourne was with this offense for 4 years, so there's not really like a transition here. I mean, it kind of makes sense after Bourne had some drops in week 4 that out of necessity he would have that big game in week 5. I still can't prioritize him that high because out of Jennings and Pearsall and Kittle and Ayuk, I hope at least 1 or 2 of them are going to come back and stay on the field, right? You have Josh Downs, and again, I think we're just attaching ourselves to good offenses, right? I mean, Josh Downs showing that he can still get open with ease in that short intermediate zone. Alec Pierce is banged up. Michael Pittman's nursing a hamstring. Adonai Mitchell, like they don't trust him. So, eventually, I think, especially if we get into some high-scoring games, some back-and-forth games, Daniel Jones is going to see that you just target Josh Downs, and he's going to move the sticks. I think that he's an important player. Who am I forgetting, Cease? The players here, though, I think the biggest takeaway you have to have is other people are probably going to prioritize Bourne a little higher than they should, and that's also including when we look at across some of the other positions. I just think it's temporary, but again, 49ers and injuries, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I think the other one was Tyquan Thornton.
Oh, Tyquan Thornton's back. Yeah, he's back from Thursday. And look, again, he led the team in yardage, attached to the offense, receiving yards, attached to this offense. And it's kind of like the opposite of Kendrick Bourne, where it's like, oh, like some of these guys are going to get healthy. It's like some of these guys probably aren't going to stay healthy. Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy. Yes, Roshy Rice is going to be back. But also this Tyquan Thornton staying involved as a deep threat means even if you have to use him as a desperation play, he can still come through for you. He's harnessing Patrick Mahomes' more aggressive tendencies coming out, which results in fantasy value.
Yeah, fantasy value abounds. The rest of the wide receiver group that we're going to look at, interesting names, smaller bids as well. Ryan Flournoy, Torrey Horton. If Torrey Horton's not picked up in your league right now, you need to find another league because Horton should have been. But 5 to 10%. Looks like Jalen Coker there as well. So yeah, let's talk about this final group of wide receivers.
Yeah, and what's neat here is Flournoy. Size, speed, athleticism guy, again, attached to a great offense, injuries, opening a window, probably closing soon. But again, if we talk about prioritizing upside late in our drafts, well, there should be a few upside stash players that maybe the powder will stay dry. But if not, then yeah, there could be some explosiveness like we saw from Flournoy. I certainly think that, I'm glad that I get to mention Jalen Coker because he was going to get that slot role. I think that's so important. And his window is open. Again, upside. That Bryce Young really leaned on Adam Thielen in the slot last year. Torrey Horton scored touchdowns in 3 games. And the other part of the Torrey Horton story is Sam Darnold. And Cooper Kupp still has something. So he's not just going to sweep Cooper Kupp aside. But Sam Darnold's playing well. So it's another case, you have these players that are almost, we talk about injury upside running backs, but when you look at the quality of play from the quarterbacks, look at the quality of these offenses, their ability to put points and pile up yards. Now there are some wide receivers that we're going to keep on our bench. Isaac Tesla is another one that I don't have in the report this week, but these players that are one injury away from having a role and have shown an ability to take advantage of that role in these big time offenses have to be on your radar.
They have to be on your radar, like this next group of tight ends as we switch to that position. Wow. Okay. Here we go. Darren Waller. Yes, it's real. You can believe it.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram actually showed up. So there's 2 to start. We got some more, Bloom, but let's start with those big 2.
And Waller has to be the priority because he looks so physically impressive. He's part of the plan to replace Tyreek Hill. He's making big plays. He's the guy that can win in the red zone. The other thing is this instant chemistry with him and Tua Tagovailoa. So why not Darren Waller? I mean, it's been that kind of year, and not only is the window open, but he's playing like half the snaps and getting targeted frequently when he's out there and in high leverage situations going up against the Chargers. I think you like that. See, so you can talk a little more extensively on Evan Ingram than I can covering the Broncos. We got a guy in Denver, but I think what's key about Evan Ingram is he made plays as part of the comeback effort. And he started the drive and he finished the drive. And his snap count is going up also. He came into the season a little bit banged up. It's going to be tough for anybody in this Broncos pass offense, I think, to be consistent week to week outside of Courtland Sutton. But at tight end, the bar is lower. And Denver's going up against the Jets this week. We saw Jake Ferguson score 2 touchdowns against them last week. So why not Evan Ingram this week?
Yeah, why not? And as Sean Payton took a little time to get J.K. Dobbins figured out, took a little time to get Evan Ingram figured out. So maybe there's more there. There's more tight ends to discuss, including David Njoku at 7 to 15%. Auntie Chill Mason Taylor.
Mhm.
I know it was Frank Gore Jr. that said that, but I'm talking about Mason Taylor's auntie, who
Yeah.
needs to chill. 7 to 15% for Mason Taylor there as well. Theo Johnson, all he keeps doing is scoring touchdowns. AJ Barner, there he is, Bloom. Some fantasy gems are like, why isn't he higher than 3 to 5%? But let's discuss the rest of these tight ends to help your fantasy team.
Yeah, maybe Barner should be higher, and then Sam Darnold keeps it up. And again, the precursor here was some reports out of Seattle that they were really surprised and pleasantly surprised at Barner's ability, Will Dissly, anybody, to catch the ball. They got him for his blocking, and it's going to be interesting to see in general to see if instead of trying to get an athlete who can be an offensive weapon and hope you teach him how to block, if teams flip that and say, let's get a guy that we know is physical and knows how to block, and maybe we can teach him receiving because Barner's doing it. But he's a lower priority just because it's going to take, are they going to be in 38, 35 shootouts? I don't know, maybe. And you're right. I might be underrating him. And what it really comes back to is how deep waiver wire tight end is. Boy, is this the waiver wire streaming year. David Njoku's back with Dylan Gabriel. Just 1 week, but that's who Dylan Gabriel favored. And David Njoku doesn't quite have the burst he used to have, but he still has game. Why not Mason Taylor? We're seeing Justin Fields and the game scripts, and Denver, as you always document, he's not great at covering the tight end. So why not Mason Taylor keeping this up? I think he had 12 targets last week, 9 catches. Theo Johnson's really interesting. 2 touchdowns last week. You're getting the short receptions at the goal line, but also had a longer touchdown. He has the speed. Darius Slayton probably not playing on Thursday night. Why not Theo Johnson as a main target? Again, you can go down to the waiver wire and see. I'll go the last guy on the list and the most unlikely. And boy, oh boy, is this a good moment to say, no matter what anybody says in the NFL, like almost nothing is impossible. Dave Tonga was a 3rd stringer coming into the season, and he grew up in the Bay Area. He grew up close, I think, to the stadium. And a 49ers fan, had that game-winning Dwight Clark-esque to catch touchdown, and now has fantasy value with Mac Jones because of the injuries. And if you need someone just for this week, replace T.J. Hawkinson, even Jake Tongas. That's the kind of year it's been at tight end.
Yeah, that's the kind of year it's been on the waiver wire, and it's only week 6. Imagine what week 12 is going to be like.
Yeah.
Imagine what after that's going to be like. Imagine, if you will, a player that frustrates you. And if there's anything in football and life that we need to get rid of, exercise the demons. I heard somebody really great say one time, you know what you do? You gotta move on. It's time to do that here on this show, the weekly tradition where we ask for your audience participation, because it's in a way scream therapy, even if it's just in your head yet, because you're in your office and you don't want to scream this. But I'd like it if you did, because then you have to explain it. And the more uncomfortable you can make people, the better, because you're just saying, hey, it's fantasy football, right? This fantasy football stuff makes me a little nutso sometimes. So in that time, it's good to get it off your chest. And the way that you do that is you scream it to the heavens. It is time to cue the Chuck D. Sigmund, shut him downs, week 6.
Yeah, some of these are layups. Geno Smith, and I don't think you're holding on to Jake Browning or Cooper Rush anymore. Rico Dowdle. By the way, there's a lot of players you probably shut down for Rico Dowdle. Like you said, I just picked up Woody Marks week to week, but you want the momentum there. Chuba Hubbard is not truly a complete shut him down, but if I had to drop Chuba Hubbard, if I'd rather have Chuba Hubbard, you say you'd rather have Chuba Hubbard or Rico Dowdle right now. Would you rather Chuba Hubbard or even say Darren Waller or Kenneth Gainwell, Amari DiMercado, Chris Rodriguez, yeah, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt closes that door. Malik Washington, Darius Slayton, Alec Ayomanor now, not for just anybody, but for a lot of the names we talked about, even Jerry Jeudy, Dylan Gabriel barely looking his way. And the carousel at tight end, right? Mark Andrews, there's a bye week coming up next week. Juwan Johnson, Tommy Tremble, Zach Ertz, all these guys you're dropping for another flavor of the week. See, I'm curious because I actually had a number of, probably 5 or 6 of the players we talked about that I would drop RJ Harvey for at this point. I'm other than J.K. Dobbins getting hurt, what's the path for Harvey to matter in fantasy this year?
Week 6. Week 6
against the Jets, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, week 6.
So don't drop. So
I've
this is
given Harvey 6 weeks to get this thing going. So 6 weeks is this Sunday in London. So yeah, week 6. That's why. One more week. One more
one
week.
more week. Okay, well
Mhm.
then maybe. I mean, I still would drop Harvey if that's what you have to do to get again these hot running backs like Dowdle or Gainwell. If you need a tight end, you need to drop him to get Waller. But one more week. Wake up on Sunday with tea and crumpets and RJ Harvey.
Yes, that's right. And wake up with some of your players that you just can't let go of. And who are those hold-ons here in week 6?
Yeah, and again, the caveat of if you have to drop these guys to get Rico Dowdle, but I'm holding on to Brock Purdy. And I know it's a second injury, and I know I just said all that stuff about Mac Jones, but maybe it's Brock Purdy who inherits all those guys when he comes back. I think that Jameson Williams, and I'm just saying that because I'm getting the questions. It's coming. This is a good enough offense that it's coming. He only had 1 target last week. Just he's going to have his turn. It's going to be okay. He hasn't dropped off a cliff in terms of quality. And similarly with Chris Godwin, I know he hasn't gotten it going yet. And then Mike Evans should be back soon. But still, man, the way that Baker Mayfield is playing, I want to hold on to receivers that are attached to him. And I want to hold on to you, Cecil. I want to hold on to all our people. Thanks everybody for coming out for the live show. It means a lot to spend some of the time of maybe your one precious life here with us. And we're going to help each other trooper on, right? That's what we have to give each other. It's perseverance, determination. See, what did Bukowski say? What matters most is how you walk through the fire.
Bukowski on my shoulder. He is Sigmund Bloom. I am Cecil Lammey. Been doing this thing for 20 years. Almost old enough to drink is the Audible.
Kids don't drink. They don't drink though, because they know it's bad it's poison. They know now. They're learning.
Alcohol was named after Al-Cool, the demon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go have a drink. Yeah. Anyway, the spirits abound. And, I think if the Audible was 20, the Audible wouldn't be a drinker. The Audible would be a midnight toker. But sorry, Joe. We'll get Joe high sometime.
Wanna be free to know things I do are right.
Hey, buddy, let me tell you about this here. Billy Bong Thornton. Anyway, we love you, Joe. Appreciate you all out there and appreciate the fantasy football lords for letting us do this for 20 years. Thanks to our audio listeners as well. And our YouTube viewers, hey, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And we get Joe high and eat his barbecue.
Yeah.
Yes. Joe, we're coming for you, buddy. And the barbecue. Anyway, he is Sigmund. I am Cecil. We are the Audible. Everyone out there, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Stay tuned. And would you please, as always, stay frosty.